switch gears, Kiron, and ask you about the president's travel ban. Since a federal judge halted this executive order, and this is just since February 3rd, refugee admissions have surged from these 7 countries named in the ban. As of yesterday, the total was 1,172. Over 100 refugees have been admitted in the past 2 days alone. Kiron, is this a threat to national security, knowing that they see an opening, they're rushing to come to the United States, largely from these 7 countries that the president deemed dangerous?
I don't see it as an immediate national security threat because people want to come here and they're from Muslim-banned countries. So I don't exactly see it that way. I do see it, though, as part of the larger confusion around the rollout of that executive order. And it's led to a lot of anxiety. I'm a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, and I'm a fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution. So I'm seeing on the ground what's happening to a lot of academics and students and researchers who do not understand where American law is heading, and they're making decisions to enter or exit the country in ways that they would not have been otherwise. And I do think the administration is going to learn that these executive orders and decrees really need a public relations strategy and an echo chamber of experts around them when they execute them, so that we don't get the kind of global confusion that you're talking about right now.
So what is the role of the United Nations? I know the Trump administration has been very vocal in regards to what it feels the United Nations has not been able to accomplish across the board. And when you look at these issues, these are global issues. Whether you talk about immigration, whether we're talking about security with North Korea, what role will the Trump administration play going forward with the UN Security Council, and how might that bring this relationship closer to be amendable?
The United Nations has been an important organization since it was founded, in terms of, bringing together diverse voices throughout the world. But in terms of U.S. interest in particular, it's often been the case that the U.S. is the target, although the UN would not exist in the current form without the United States paying its dues, adding its moral voice to that body that it in fact helped found in the first place. But I think the UN will be put on notice, and the Security Council in particular, that the United States expects a lot more reciprocity and respect, given that it is a global leader. It is the world superpower. It provides a level of support and security and extended deterrence for much of the globe. And I think this administration and Ambassador Haley will emphasize that time and time again.
Kiron, Dennis Kucinich just joined us, and he made some serious charges. Last night, of course, General Michael Flynn resigned as National Security Advisor over his conversation with Russia and how he explained what happened. Now, former Democratic presidential candidate Dennis Kucinich had this to say about that.
What's at the core of this is an effort by some in the intelligence community to upend any positive relationship between the U.S. and Russia. And I tell you, there's a marching band and chowder society out there. There's gold in them there hills. There are people trying to separate the U.S. and Russia so that this military-industrial intel axis can cash in.
Kiron, what about this? This is a serious situation where Dennis Kucinich is saying that somebody within the intelligence community is undermining this administration. I mean, okay, yes, they listen to phone calls and eavesdrop on phone calls, but who's leaking this? The Washington Post broke the story of what exactly was happening on that phone call between Michael Flynn and his potential counterpart in Russia. The Washington Post broke the story. So who told the Washington Post?
That's a good question. I've never seen as many leaks coming out of the White House in a rapid-fire way as I've seen right now, and it needs to stop. And I believe that the confusion of this administration so far in terms of leaking is something that itself could damage national security. I'm sure that those in the White House who are committed to the president and his agenda are horrified by the number of leaks that are happening, and where these are coming from, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't build right now a conspiracy around Russia and what's happened, sadly, with General Flynn. I do think that, you know, the fact that Trump won was a surprise for so many. Flynn was an early supporter of his, and I believe that, you know, many didn't think he would win. And I think the transition in some ways suffered from the fact that this was a surprise for all, and they had to play catch-up. And I think we saw that in the, the early weeks of the administration, that catch-up continuing on.
Kiron Skinner, good to have you on the program this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And by the way, there's an op-ed in the Journal this morning. If Mr. Flynn was under U.S. intelligence surveillance, then Mr. Trump should know why. Was there a court order to listen, and who's leaking this stuff? That's the bigger question right now. We'll take